Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the information noise to bring you what really matters, so you can get up to speed fast. Today we're diving into a really inspiring project. It's called Wings Without Borders, and it's run by the Inwood Butterfly Sanctuary right here in New York City. Our mission today is basically to unpack how this project tackles, well, it's really a dual mission, but they're totally interconnected. It's not just about saving endangered monarch butterflies, which, don't get me wrong, is absolutely vital, but it's also about deeply engaging communities, especially kids, and specifically in what are called environmental justice areas. Those neighborhoods that often face more pollution and usually have less access to green spaces. We'll explore how this kind of hands-on learning connects the health of an indicator species like the monarch to the whole community's well-being. And, why environmental stewardship is just so critical for our future and, frankly, for our own psychological health in these urban settings.
Yeah, and what's really compelling here, I think, is that this isn't just some small local garden project. It really goes beyond that. If you look at the bigger picture, it's actually a potential blueprint, a model for urban conservation efforts pretty much anywhere. It's about strengthening those community bonds and actively, shaping a healthier future for the next generations. Our sources for this deep dive, they include actual project proposals, some internal communications, media coverage, and they really pull back the curtain on the ambitious vision here, and actually some pretty unexpected challenges they've had to deal with. It's a fascinating story: environmental action, community resilience, and some really innovative thinking.
Okay, so let's unpack where it all started. The heart of it is the Inwood Butterfly Sanctuary itself, IBS. It's up at 630 Isham Street in Inwood, Manhattan. And for about 5 years now, this place has been a huge success story. Really has. They've been raising and releasing hundreds, literally hundreds, of monarch butterflies. And they do it with help from the community. They talk about creating this beautiful, growing community, kids, families, residents, all involved. So building on that success, that's where Wings Without Borders comes in. It kind of expands on the original sanctuary and also the Isham Park Children's Pollinator Garden. They even got this specific $500 grant from the NYC Parks Department. And that let them create a whole new children's garden right across from Dos Amigos Elementary and Good Shepherd School, designed specifically for nature learning.
Exactly. And that new garden, it's not just, another patch of green. It's a really key piece in this bigger Wings Without Borders idea. The main goal, the core objective, is to set up a whole citywide network, monarch butterfly way stations, and they're strategically placing them across New York City's environmental justice communities.
Yeah.
Think of it like creating these vital green stepping stones, links in the Atlantic Flyway Migration Corridor. It's like a safe passage for these tiny, incredible travelers.
That makes so much sense.
And the real genius, I think, is in its dual purpose. It's ecological and it's social. They use the monarch butterfly, which is so iconic, right, as an indicator species.
Like a canary in a coal mine, sort of.
Exactly like that, a living barometer.
Right.
It helps spotlight these wider environmental issues that affect not just the wildlife, but us, the human communities, too. And this connects directly to that broader We Grow NYC initiative. The philosophy there is all about cultivating life, empowering communities, transforming neglected spaces, and ultimately saving endangered species. And that includes ourselves, really, by rebuilding that connection to nature.
Right. Using the butterflies to tell that bigger story about our shared environment, our community health. So, practically speaking, how do they do it? How do they create these habitats?
Well, it starts with the plants, obviously. Very specific native plants that monarchs absolutely need. Top of the list is swamp milkweed, Asclepias incarnata. It's not just important.
It's the only one, right, for the caterpillars?
That's the one, the sole host plant. Without it, the caterpillars just, they can't survive, they can't grow. Then, for the adult butterflies, they need nectar, so they plant nectar-rich flowers.
Okay, like what kinds?
Things like purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea, and black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta.
Ah, yeah, you see those a lot in city gardens.
You do. They're popular, they're tough, great choices for New York pollinator gardens, and they bring in all sorts of bees and butterflies, creating these really vibrant little ecosystems.
Okay, so the plants are crucial. But you mentioned education, too.
Yes, and beyond just the planting, the educational programming is, I think, a really key element, especially something they call the butterfly experience.
Yeah.
This is how they really hook the next generation, inspire future caretakers. They use things like pop-up vivariums, little enclosures and interactive kiosks that show the whole butterfly life cycle. And get this, visitors, especially the kids, they actually get a chance to gently hold, feed, and even release butterflies.
Wow. That's incredible to actually hold one.
It's profound. That direct, hands-on thing, it fosters such deep empathy for nature, creates these lasting memories, and hopefully promotes, lifelong environmental stewardship. Plus, it's smartly linked up with existing programs like the National Wildlife Federation's Monarch Mission curriculum, and also the Symbolic Migration Project, where students make paper butterflies as ambassadors to learn about the migration and connect with kids in other places along the route.
And that's where it really clicks for me. How does that hands-on learning actually, make a difference for the kids and the whole community, especially in those environmental justice areas we talked about?
Well, it's not just any impact. The powerful thing is how it directly tackles that issue of equity, access to nature. Because, like you said, providing these experiences directly addresses those disparities we often see in cities. Access to green space, especially in lower income areas.
Well, it levels the playing field a bit.
Exactly. Makes nature learning accessible for everyone. And they don't just learn passively. They get involved in real citizen science. These young people become citizen scientists. They're out there surveying, observing the monarch habitat.
Well, like counting eggs and stuff?
Yeah, counting eggs, caterpillars, even the milkweed stalks. They even participate in tagging butterflies to help track that amazing migration. And all that data they collect, it contributes to big platforms like iNaturalist. So they're not just learning about science, they're actively doing science, contributing to global knowledge.
That's fantastic. And obviously, something like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. You mentioned partnerships earlier.
Oh, absolutely critical. And it's not just the number of partners, it's how intentionally they've built this network. It really spans the whole community. You've got dedicated parents involved, local schools, Dos Amigos Elementary, Good Shepherd, School in the Square. Key community organizations, too, like the New York Restoration Project, Partnerships for Parks, Friends of Inwood Hill Park.
So grassroots and established groups working together.
Precisely. And government agencies are crucial partners, too. NYC Parks, the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. It's this really smart synergy. And they're always working on funding, looking for grants from places like Con Edison, Citizens NYC, the Treetops Grant. It shows how they're building resources specifically for environmental justice.
So, okay, amazing work, strong foundation. What kind of impact has Wings Without Borders actually had? And, has it all been smooth sailing? Any bumps in the road?
Well, let's start with the recognition, because that's pretty impressive. The project was actually a finalist in the 4th Annual Anthem Awards. That's a big deal.
Which category was that?
Sustainability, environment and climate, local community engagement. And consider this. They were chosen from over 3,200 submissions from 34 countries.
Wow, okay. That really says something about their approach.
It really does. And the media coverage has been pretty extensive, too, amplifying their message way beyond just NYC. They've been featured on PBS as The Dynamic Planet, locally on NY1, where the founder, Keith DeCesare, was actually named New Yorker of the Week.
Oh, I remember seeing that. That's a huge honor.
Huge honor. Also, WNYC Morning Edition, ABC7, even NHK Newsline Japan. So global interest. And local papers like the Riverdale Press and Manhattan Times have covered them too. It shows how the story resonates.
You'd think with all that positive attention, all that support, things would be straightforward. But then you mentioned unexpected challenges. What happened?
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of shocking, actually. They faced significant censorship. Their Save Monarch Butterflies website and the Wings Without Borders Facebook page were targeted.
Targeted by who?
By individuals they identified as animal rights extremists. Basically, critics who oppose raising butterflies in captivity at all. And these critics launched this campaign, falsely reporting the pages for impersonation and, believe it or not, animal cruelty.
Animal cruelty.
Yeah.
For raising butterflies to save them. That seems backwards. What was the reaction of the sanctuary? Disbelief.
I imagine it was a mix of things. Disbelief, certainly. Frustration, definitely. But also resolve. And this really highlights the whole problem of misinformation in conservation work today. The core of the false claim was this idea that butterflies raised in captivity somehow lose their instinct to migrate.
Is there any truth to that?
Well, the Inwood Butterfly Sanctuary strongly refutes it. They explain their methods in detail. They call them highly successful, innovative, and labor-intensive. They stress that their conservation is natural, autonomous. They raise the larvae outdoors with natural light, natural temperature cues. The only intervention is protecting them from predators, ants, wasps, which honestly would otherwise wipe out almost all the eggs and tiny caterpillars in the wild.
So it's not about coddling them. It's about giving them a fighting chance against huge natural odds.
Exactly. It's about tipping the scales back slightly. And this whole episode really threw a spotlight on that tension between different conservation approaches and how easily misinformation can spread online. The real insight here isn't just saving butterflies, it's understanding that the health of that butterfly, that ecosystem, directly mirrors the health and the equity within the human community around it. Misinformation tries to break that connection.
So how did they fight back against this digital attack,
Again, though,
against the censorship?
their response was brilliant, actually. Really creative. They launched something called the #censorship challenge.
Okay, what did that involve?
Get this. They used Meta's own AI tools. Tools like Help Me Write and Imagine, which are meant for generating content. They used those tools to create new content that could get around the automated blocking systems that were flagging their legitimate posts.
Wow, so they literally used the platform's own AI against its flawed censorship mechanisms. That's like digital judo.
Exactly, fighting fire with fire. But more than just being clever, they turned this whole setback into a much bigger conversation. It became this kind of David versus Goliath story, a small grassroots group using AI smartly to counter what looked like AI-driven censorship. It sparked discussions about free speech and environmental advocacy, and the hurdles small organizations face in this digital world. It really forced a conversation. Even Meta, Facebook's parent company, eventually admitted their technology made a mistake.
So they admitted they were wrong.
They did acknowledge the mistake, yes, although unfortunately, the sanctuary's website URL remained banned on Facebook and Instagram. So it really shows the complexity, the learning curve with AI moderation, and just how resilient these grassroots groups need to be. The key takeaway isn't just about fighting fake news, it's about how these organizations now have to be so digitally agile, sometimes using the tools meant to control content as tools for their own advocacy.
What an incredible story.
Yeah, seriously.
From nurturing tiny caterpillars to battling AI censorship. Wings Without Borders really covers the whole spectrum. It's clearly addressing those ecological needs, saving an endangered species, which is urgent. But it's doing so much more, enhancing community awareness, improving how connected the urban environment is, ecologically speaking, and really fostering that deep sense of environmental stewardship, especially, again, in those environmental justice areas. It feels like such a holistic response.
Absolutely. And if you connect it back to the bigger picture, it really does demonstrate a model that could be used elsewhere. It's replicable. Look at their pilot program plans aiming for 10, 15 initial sites in EJ areas. They've budgeted it out carefully. Around $2,500 to $5,000 per site for the actual garden installation. Then about $10,000 for educational materials, $15,000 for training programs.
So it's structured, it's thought through.
Exactly. It shows a sustainable approach that could absolutely be scaled up across New York City, definitely, but potentially in other cities too, all along that monarch migration route. Imagine creating these pollinator pathways, these resilient communities up and down the coast. Which leads to, I think, a really crucial final thought for you, the listener. In a world that's grappling with species extinction, with pollution, with just relentless development, what role can initiatives like Wings Without Borders really play? How much can they help build resilience? Not just for the monarchs, but for the psychological well-being of people living in cities, for the kids who will inherit this planet, and maybe just as important, how do we make sure that these vital conservation messages, the ones coming straight from the ground, aren't silenced, whether it's by technology glitches or by deliberate misinformation, especially now, in such a critical time for the environment?
It really does make you consider the power we have